And good morning. I am Tamara Scott. Thanks for joining us as we come into Truth for Our Time, as we give you help when the headlines hit home. There's so much happening right now. And I was just talking with one of our guests off air, and, it's tempting to be depressed, downcast, not certain what's going to happen. And, well, today we're going to give you several ways on how you can make things better, what you can do to help improve your situation and to stop what's happening around you that we don't like. If you want to join in the conversation at any point today, you may do so by calling 855-244-0077, 855-244-0077. There's so much to talk about. Of course, we're dealing with the government shutdown. The open air parks, memorials are closed. We dealt with that even the last couple of weeks. And we know how much it must be costing to bring in guards and barricades to make sure we close those so the public can't enjoy them. It's evident, it's obvious that this president is trying to make us miserable and trying to push his power around. Will it be beneficial, or will it cause a backlash? Is his outrageous attempt to lord over you going to create a benefit or a backlash? That will remain to be seen. Today we're going to jump right into things. My first guest, I'm glad she can join us, is Deborah Thornton. Deborah is with the Public Interest Institute, and if you want to find information on what we're talking about in this conversation, you may go to limitedgovernment.org. Public Interest Institute is a national policy center, and you may find them at limitedgovernment.org. And my computer just gave me the death disc. How about that? But Deb is a research analyst. She's a writer. She's an authority on many topics that we deal with, and I've had the privilege of interviewing her in the past on this radio show on different stations. You're seeing us now at webcast1live.com, webcast1live.com. Email your friends, tweet your friends, and let them know they can join in the conversation too. Deb, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate you taking time out of your commute to join in the conversation.
No problem, Tamara. I'm glad to be here.
So you keep your hands on the wheel, your eyes on the road, and you can talk to us while you're doing that.
Hopefully.
All right. And you're coming into here, Grover Norquist, right here in Iowa today, right?
Yes, he was this morning at the West Side Conservative Breakfast Club, and then he'll be at another meeting over lunchtime.
Very good.
And so very interested in hearing from him and hearing what's going on from his view.
So I'll look forward to seeing you there. But in the meantime, let's talk about this recent article. The Public Interest Institute puts briefs out each month. We have great information coming from you. This one is entitled The 4 Things We Need, the 1 Thing We Must Do. Take us through it quickly.
Yes, this is basically a review of a book called The Great Degeneration by Niall, Niall Ferguson. And in it, he talks about the things that cause a country to either move forward economically and productively, or to become stagnant and to even move backwards in terms of their development and the lives of the people in the country.
And for those of you who want to follow along, you can go to limitedgovernment.org, go to the publications, click on briefs, and the October brief. You'll see this title here. So we've got 4 things that are happening. What's the first one?
The four things he talks about are, first of all, would be democracy. Having democracy as a form of government, as a form of government that people can operate under and that works successfully. And he talks about the problems that we're having today. And I think this government shutdown is a prime example of those problems. Then the second thing he talks about is capitalism. Having capitalism, having businesses be able to grow and people be able to start a business in an easy way and quickly without lots of regulations and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And then the third thing he talks about, which I think is one of the areas where we're having significant problems today, is the idea of rule of law, that all the laws apply to everyone equally, and that as our Constitution, directs, we're all treated the same under the law. And particularly this Obamacare situation is the worst example of that not happening, where big businesses have been given exemptions, where certain other individual companies have been given exemptions, but yet all of the regular people, all the taxpayers, are not, and we're being forced to comply with something that others are not being forced to comply with. So the rule of law is a big problem, and along with that goes the whole idea of corruption of the elected officials, in our democracy, corruption of systems, and it's who you know to get things done, not having things operate in the same manner across the board.
Yep, and I would say corruption in our republic, because though we hear it democracy often, but I remind people it is a republic. We live in a republic. We have a representation, a representative republic. So the issue with the democracy is we get into mobocracy, and we're seeing that too, actually. When we see the people outside the courthouse when the young lady in Florida was acquitted on her daughter's murder trial, if you remember that, they were not happy. They were wanting justice of their own. This is what happens when people don't feel things are happening in a just manner, or that they're being represented in a positive way. And I think we're going to see more and more of this as you're pointing out, Deb, as things continue to happen that are not, one, what we're used to. Here's the problem, and we're going to deal with this in our next topic, too, in the next couple of segments with the Common Core. We've never had a situation in America where we have not been treated justly, and where we've not had the liberties that we so enjoy endowed to us by our Creator and upheld by our government. But it's coming, and it's happening, and because we've never dealt with it, we don't know how to respond.
Right, and those situations in Florida are caused just because that people, whether you agree with the decision or not, don't believe that the rule of law is being applied appropriately and equally to everyone. And certainly there are those that would argue that, well, it never has been, when you look at things like segregation and before that, the actual slavery. And I would say yes, and we understand that those situations were wrong, and so they're being addressed in order to be, equal rule of law of everyone. And then the final thing that Ferguson talks about in his book, which is the part I found most positive, the first three problems I found very, difficult and depressing, and was not optimistic about how we're addressing them and where we go. The fourth thing that he talked about was civic participation and civic society. And the idea there is that people must go out and participate, and that even back in the 1700s, in the early days of the democracy, of the country, people participated, and we were famous for that. We were famous for barn raisings. We were famous for helping our neighbors, and that involvement, particularly since the 1960s, whenever government became so much bigger and taking over the war on poverty, that sort of thing, that participation has fallen significantly. And people aren't becoming Masons. People aren't going to church. People aren't, and this is the important part, taking leadership in those organizations. We have to step up and take leadership and say, yeah, I can clear my schedule. I can make time to be an officer of this organization. I can make time to go to this meeting. I can participate.
And Deb, that's a perfect topic, even going into our next segments, because we'll be talking about Common Core. But, here's what people need to understand on being the leader. Oftentimes you will sense, and I'm going to say this to each of you, you will sense something's not right. It may be an economic issue. It may be in your child's school. It may be at your church. It may be at the city council. You feel it. You can't say this is the problem. You can't lay out four points like Deb has done so nicely in her writing, but you know in your heart something's wrong. Do not wait for somebody else to address it. Start asking questions. You don't have to be accusatory, but start asking questions. Perhaps, as we learn on this program, God has a plan for each of us, and perhaps you're the one He's given this particular issue to. So you can't call or ask somebody else to carry the burden you've been given. And Deb, I remind people, you don't have to be an expert. We appreciate the degrees, we appreciate the teaching, the learning that people have, but as John Taylor Gatto so well reminds us, learning is what we do as individuals, and what we learn, it's not being schooled. There's a difference. And the degree is not necessarily Unfortunately, many people with the degrees are on the wrong side of the issues, and the experts have gotten us into the fine mess that we're dealing with. So, Deb, I would say to people, if you feel something's wrong, something's amiss, get involved, ask questions. Don't worry that you don't have the qualifications. Ask questions.
Right, exactly. And don't wait for the government. I think the biggest picture that he was talking about is don't wait for the government to do it. The government is not the right place for so many things that we've turned over to it today. The right place for the solution is us, is the individual, is our local groups and communities, and stepping up to ask the questions. And yeah, you don't need a degree in leadership to be the president of X group. You just need to make the time and want to do the job and want to help people move forward. And so the problems that we're seeing are significant, but what Ferguson really presented was, here's the first solution that we can all do today. We can pick up the phone today. We can go to a meeting, and we can have an impact. And we've got to, frankly, we've got to in the schools with the children, in our churches, even with our neighbors.
You're absolutely right. So, Deb, thank you so much for this information. And to our viewers, to our listeners, let me just take time out. I've got it in my hand. It is our Constitution. We refer to it, but unfortunately, many don't know it anymore. We the people of the United States, we the people. It's the key. It was what made us strong. It's what will save us if we are to be saved. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and that's not welfare like you see it used today. That's like our public interest. And secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. Deb, remind us once again, it is we the people. It's not what this president is doing. We've never seen a president take such power and try to overrule previous law. He refuses to uphold DOMA. He refuses to uphold various laws, but he pushes the healthcare law that people obviously do not want. And so, real briefly, what is your take on what we're dealing with the shutdown right now?
Well, the Republicans and the House of Representatives is doing the correct thing because they must draw that line in the sand. Because yes, the idea of having our representative democracy overruled, having capitalism overruled, and ignoring the rule of law are all critical flaws that we cannot allow to continue.
Very good. My guest has been Deb Thornton. Deb is with the Public Interest Institute, and you may find the article, the paper that we're talking about, on the website limitedgovernment.org. Thanks for joining me today, Deb Thornton.
Very good. Thanks, Tamara. Bye-bye.
We're going to take a break right now. We'll go to our sponsors, and we'll be back right after this message, webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I'm administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotta be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm going to take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed rider, it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
And thank you for joining me. I am Tamara Scott. This is Truth for Our Time. It's Tamara Scott Live. I don't really care what you call it. The point is to get information to you, the listener, the viewer, so that you can do something with it. Every day, information is coming out. I look when I'm in Washington, D.C., and the corner will just have box after box after box of newspapers. You go on your computer, and there's website after website of news websites and resources and information where you can get what's happening in today. It's not that we can't get the information, and yet most parents, most taxpayers are not aware of Common Core. They just don't know what it is. They've not heard about it. And when I talk about it, well, right away, they're very concerned, they're agitated, they're irritated. What a great gift when I get to go talk to people and I get to irritate them and agitate them. Maybe that's my life verse. We've talked about it in Hebrews. I think it's Hebrews 10:24 or something that says, provoke each other into love. I provoke when I speak. And I'll be speaking actually this Saturday to the Iowa Republican Federation of Women at their state conference. I'll be speaking on a different topic on Islam, Sharia law, and its impact on women. We'll be discussing that from an Iowa perspective this Saturday. But on the Common Core, people are extremely concerned as it's being implemented. You haven't heard a lot about it. It was not a state-led initiative, even though it's called Common Core State-Led Initiative. It is not. It was funded by Bill and Melinda Gates. We've talked about it several weeks on this show. We're going to continue talking about it to make sure that you have more information on it. Joining me today is Jill Jennings. Jill serves on the task force for the New Generation Science Standards. NGSS is the acronym that they've put on that you hear or you will hear about. So, Jill, thank you for joining me today.
Yes, thank you for having me on, Tamara.
And to those of you who are listening in and chatting along, you can join us 855-244-0077 into the discussion. And as our last guest, Deb Thornton, reminded you, you don't have to be an expert. But if you feel like there's something wrong, something's amiss, please get involved. Please make your voice heard. Please ask questions. Right now, there are elections. People are gearing up for 2014. You may even have some city council, some school board, or some smaller elections in your state. Be asking people, where are they at on Common Core? Because even though it didn't come in through your legislature, it came in when your state applied for the race to the top monies. Your legislature, your governor can stop it. So be asking people before you give them your support or your vote. This is one of the most crucial issues. Jill, how did you get involved with Common Core, and certainly how did you get involved on the task force?
I first woke up to Common Core about 9 months ago. I came across some articles. It was about last December, and very alarming. And so as I did more research, more reading, became more and more concerned that I just felt like I just needed to really educate myself before I started talking to legislators or school board members. And then through the winter and into the spring, I kind of started to see a few little things about these next generation science standards. And although it didn't have the Common Core label associated with it, I kept finding them kind of in partnership in the different articles I was reading. Then late spring, early summer, and I don't recall where, but I came across the application to apply to be on the task force, and I was very excited. And I thought, well, what do I have to lose? And so I filled it out, sent it in, and was very pleased to receive word back that I had been accepted as a task force member.
Very good. And so now that you're on the task force, are you pleased? Are you concerned with what you're hearing?
I am both. I am concerned with the standards themselves. I'm concerned with the almost blind acceptance that a lot of people seem to have for them, just thinking that they're the next best thing to, since sliced bread. But I'm also encouraged because as I talk to more people and ask more questions, I'm learning that I'm not the only one who's questioning it and really concerned about our state adopting these standards. So that's been encouraging to me.
Okay. And so when you're saying the standards, give us an idea. What about these standards?
What do you mean? Could you be more specific, please?
I'm hearing that they're only a C. And so explain to our viewers, our listeners, what that means when the Fordham Institute only gives it a C. Oh,
right. Yes. The Fordham Institute, which from what I understand is a think tank that took a look at the standards, and they, like you said, they gave them a grade of C. They scored the different states' standards, including NGSS, on a score of 0 to 10, and then they ranked them. And NGSS gets a score of C, which, as we know from going to school, C is just average. Sadly, Iowa, they gave our standards a score of D, which, so we have room for improvement. But if you look at the graphic that they have online, there are many states that received grades of A or A minus. And so I'm thinking, why don't we look at those standards and see how perhaps we could use them to maybe work on improving our science standards. The states that they gave a grade of A or A minus to were California, Washington, D.C., Indiana, Massachusetts, South Carolina, and Virginia. So, there's something better out there.
So those states had better standards. Are those states going with the Common Core?
Not that I don't think so. So far, I was looking for the list. The 8th state to accept NGSS just happened last week. The state of Washington accepted them. Some of the other states I was looking through my information here, I believe Vermont and Kentucky, Kansas, and there's, of course, a few others, but off the top of my head, I can't remember them right now.
Okay, very good. So as you say, why aren't we going for something better than just a one grade level up? If we're going to revamp a program, why not do it well?
Exactly.
Have you heard the cost with this?
Yes, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but between obviously, materials, textbooks, whether they be physical textbooks or online textbooks, teacher training, professional development, it's going to be quite a costly investment. And that's why I'm thinking, why do we want to have these teachers go through all this time and energy and effort to put these standards in when there really aren't that much better than what we already have?
And one of our previous shows, we talked with Henry Burke. Henry is a civil engineer who, in his spare time, has gone through and done state-specific analysis on the cost of Common Core. And he says it will cost Iowa $184 million. $184 million. And, of course, we let our viewers and listeners know a couple weeks ago, Louisiana, as Henry said, should be the one state who did well, actually got some funds back from the federal government, and yet they're still hurting to the point where they're going back to city councils with bond referendums and asking for millions to help pay for the laptops for their students. And then I just saw the article last week where California had given laptops to their students, and guess what? The students have already either lost them, sold them, or hacked into areas they should not be on them. So California was recalling the laptops and iPads that they had given their students at still a cost $700 a piece to the taxpayers.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So what curriculum do we know, what technology will we have to have if we bring this in for our students, our smaller school districts? What will they have to do?
Well, like California, I suppose we would, need to have laptops or iPads or something, and that's another branch of the NGSS. And you can't hardly talk about NGSS without also talking about Common Core, because they really are pretty well linked together. Is that it's the ulterior motives of data collection, which I know is a whole other topic. The longitudinal data systems that are in place for sharing information, and so and testing. That's the goal. A lot of this is just testing, and so. Gosh, it's going to take, the school district I am at has we're into our fourth year of a one-to-one initiative. All the kids here have a laptop, and we've had our fair share of issues and difficulties and problems. But yeah, gosh, it's going to be a big issue.
All right, and so let's come back in Iowa, and I know this goes to across the nation. The show is heard and listened to around the nation, but in Iowa, we have a very rare opportunity. By Friday, this Friday, folks can have input. They can go to the Department of Education's website and fill out the NGSS survey.
Correct.
Now, when they do that, there's a couple things we want them to know. Can you take us through that?
Absolutely. First of all, yes, the deadline is this Friday, so there's only a few days to go. And I double-checked the portal, or whatever you want to call it, will be open until midnight. I double-checked with the facilitator of the task force, and she said, yes, midnight will be the cutoff Friday night. The survey is not very long, but there are a few things you should know. Once you go into the survey, there are only 7 questions, so it's not very long. But once you go into the survey, you cannot exit out and be able to get back into it. So you really kind of need to do your homework ahead of time. And so when I was sending this out to people I wanted to know, actually had the help of a friend who because I had actually got into it ahead of time because we received it as a task force number to look at, and I didn't even answer the questions. I just went through to see what was in there. And then when I exited out, I didn't know I wouldn't be able to go back and take the survey. But I was able to get the questions from someone else. So I don't know. Do you want me to go through the questions?
Yes, let's do. And we can talk. I want to get into the content of the NGSS as well.
Mm-hmm.
And for those listeners and viewers who are just learning about this, obviously we're into the worldview issues, the environmentalism, the global warming, the evolution is taught as the only. And it's no longer taught as a theory, it's taught as the only scientific way.
Correct.
So we want to talk about that shortly, but let's go through your questions to kind of help people through, because it can be intimidating. For a parent, we might think, I don't have a science background. I'll leave, and this is the other thing. We just talked about this in our first segment a little bit. I'll leave it to the expert. Who better is equipped to raise your children than you, who God designed to raise the children he gave you? Do not forsake this responsibility. Whether you think you have the answers or not, yes, we can always study, we can always learn, we can always try to be educated and informed. But this is your call, and if you don't do this, I think you're every bit as responsible as if you do it wrong. The thing is on this, we're going to get good instruction on how to do it well. So, Jill, take us through the questions if you would.
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to agree with you on that. I don't have a science background either. I'm a substitute teacher now, but I previously was a Spanish teacher. So my area does not lie in science. But you know what? It's so neat with the internet these days. You can really educate yourself, and that's what I've been working on these last several months. So that is good advice. That who loves our kids and is more concerned about our kids than us, not some bureaucrat in another state or off in Washington. So, yes. Okay, here's the questions. Number 1, which stakeholder group or groups do you represent? And, there's some choices, parent, teacher. So that's a pretty easy question.
And I'm just, they keep calling us stakeholders.
I know it.
The letter that came out from the Department of Education to just a few legislators that I know. The legislators that I happen to be meeting with, none of them were invited. But they kept talking about stakeholder groups, and that's the letter. And I bring it up because that's the letter that talked about the U.S. Education Delivery Institute. And I want you to understand this as much as I can. They keep bringing up these groups we've never heard of. They keep giving them acronyms we don't know, so we can't track what's going on. And in that was the only thing I could find in a search that night were job titles and salaries for the Education Delivery Institute. They were all medical. We're going to come back to that.
Interesting.
Ryan, well, maybe we'll just do it right now. Ryan, can we do the Arnie Duncan? Okay, we're going to take this is how my mind works. I'm sorry, we're just going to jump away. We're going to go to a clip with Arnie Duncan.
Sure.
And I think it just kind of shows us where we're headed with this.
I think our schools should be open 12, 13, 14 hours a day. So it's not just lengthening.
So 8 to 8 or something like that?
Yes, and let me tell you what, not just lengthening obviously the school day, but a wide variety of after-school activities. At home, we attached healthcare clinics to about 24 of our schools. Where schools truly become the centers of the community, great things happen. So I think we need the schools open much longer hours.
So keep them open 12 hours a day, 12 months a year?
Yes.
12 hours a day, 12 months a year?
And I would go to 6 or 7 days a week, not just Monday through Friday.
7 days a week.
Schools
so
need
the
to
school becomes a center of community life.
Where the school becomes a center of community life, great things are going to happen for those families and great things are going to happen for those children.
Then tell me why that hasn't happened before.
That is Arnie Duncan, your education secretary, on the Charlie Rose Show. Were you able to hear that okay, Jill?
Yes, I heard the clip.
Does that raise the hairs on the back of your neck?
You know, I have a feeling in the pit of my stomach. It's so scary. They want, that's their goal, is for the state, quote unquote, to be the parents.
And the reason I bring that in is the U.S. Education Delivery Institute. The only thing I could find for salaries and job titles were all medical. LPNs, licensed technicians. This is why I think, and I'm just going to put it out there, maybe what you think. We'll couch it that way. When the Iowa recently was able to do away with telemed abortions, giving young ladies abortions with no physician being present, just over the internet. Why do you need that if you're going to bring in medical clinics to the schools? You won't need those anymore. You'll be able to accomplish the same without parental involvement or interference. So, Jill, I see that Leslie has on the chat line, for those of you who are following along on webcast1live.com, Leslie has kindly given us the link for the survey. The link is at Iowans for Location or IowansForLocalControl.com, and you can find it there. And we'll also, if you will go to Stop Common Core Iowa, I'm sure we'll have it on both those Facebook pages. One is an open group and one is a closed group for discussion. We'll have it on both those. And I will certainly update it on Truth for Our Time Facebook page shortly after the show. So, Leslie, take us through the questions. And forgive me for that jump, but I just think it all fits in place.
Okay. You ready for the next question?
Yes.
Okay. So number 2 is, please indicate the process you used to review the Next Generation Science Standards to form the basis for your survey responses.
Why do they ask that?
Well, I think it goes back to what you said a minute ago about how the educrats use all of these acronyms and things, and we get so confused. That's their goal. They want us as parents, as, non-bureaucrats, to just throw up our arms and say, oh my gosh, I do not understand this, forget it. And they want us to just not pay attention so that they can have be in charge of the whole thing. And sadly, that's what's happened in the last 50, 60 years in education. We felt like, gosh, the teachers should know best. The principals should know best. The governor should know best. And we have turned over our parental rights, I guess, to them. And sadly, they haven't all been in our best interest. And so that's why a lot of this didn't just happen overnight. It's been many decades in coming.
And not only are they not in our best interest as families, children, parents, they're honestly often adversarial to those roles.
Yeah, they're trying to. It's a communist tenet that to separate the kids and re-educate or indoctrinate them and separate them from their parents, because they don't want their parents instilling their family values, their religion, their faith, all of those kinds of things. They want the state to be in charge.
And another side note, sorry folks, it's just the way my mind works. We talk about the polarization in our communities today and in the political realm. And yes, the politics may feed into that, but it's coming out of the schools. When you have kids coming out with, as we discussed, the warped worldview that is through the NGS, it is riddled with it. I had a student physically hand me his assignment for AP History last week in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And the assignment was how he should persuade others that so-called gay marriage was a good thing in the community. And we wonder why kids are in conflict, why people are not at peace, and why we have this deep polarization in our nations. It's coming out of our schools. I'm sorry, but you cannot teach this K through college and wonder why people don't feel free to discuss things and have personal opinions when they come out with this group think in the schools. All right, Jill, other thoughts on this question?
Okay, so I'm going to restate it again, and then I'll give you what the choices are on the survey. So again, the question for number 2 is, please indicate the process you used to review the Next Generation Science Standards to form the basis for your survey responses. And there is a multiple choice option. You can choose reviewed the entire document, which is it's out there. I think it's on the Department of Education, and also I think if you just Google Next Generation Science Standards, it will come up. Another choice is reviewed the K-12 progression of standards through a particular core idea or topic, which I don't even hardly understand what that means. Reviewed the full set of standards for all disciplines at a particular grade or grade span. Reviewed a discipline, and then in parentheses it says LS, comma, ESS, comma, PS. Who knows what those mean? And then the final choice is did not review the standards. So, I mean, that question right there, I can see people being thinking, how am I supposed to answer this question, you know?
And if I didn't do any of it, but I just don't like it, you have that right. You're a parent, you're a taxpayer. You have every bit of right to have your opinion. You know, that freedom, that liberty, that First Amendment. And not only do we have the liberty to disagree, we have the freedom to express it. And they don't have talk show hosts on there. You could be learning about it from several great talk shows around here. So they don't have all the options, all the captions there. So, all right, let's move on to the next one.
Yep, number 3, the Next Generation Science Standards are well organized and easy to read. And your choices are strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree.
And you read through them. What is your thought?
Well, to be honest, I have not read every word and every page, but I have, looked closely at many of the different topics. I think it's actually, as a non-science person, it was kind of difficult to understand parts of it. I mean, if you really sit and look at it, it's kind of color-coded, which there's a blue section, science and engineering practices, an orange section, disciplinary core ideas, and a green section, cross-cutting concepts. So, I think it can be kind of a challenge, I think, to figure it out.
And I think they're hoping that. I think they're counting on that.
I think there are some that do. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go to question number 4.
You got it. Number 4, the amount of content present in the Next Generation Science Standards will prepare students to be ready for college, careers, and other post-secondary options. It has the same choices as number 3, strongly agree, agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree, which I think that's kind of a loaded question because, how is the average person supposed to really know that?
Well, and we've heard from several, this is the concern that I think is it Dr. James Milgram, who was on the accreditation committee and refused to sign off because it will not aptly prepare. We've heard this with the college career and readiness. That students, geometry, for instance, will be introduced and tenets of it will be taught, but not in depth like it was. And students will be, even though they're considered college career ready, they may be able to get into a community college, but certainly not a select university or a private institute in many cases, and may not be prepared for most state colleges. Would you say that's correct, Jill?
Yeah, actually, I'm looking at an Eagle Forum article that I printed out. It's dated July 13th, so this is after the final edition of the standards was released, I believe, in May. So this was after the final sample was out there. And just a few quotes from this article. The Next Generation Science Standards again indicate that in the world of Common Core, college ready means to graduate students who are only prepared for further studies at a non-selective institution or a 2-year community college. Common Core does not prepare students for a 4-year college. NGSS will not prepare students for study in a STEM subject, which is a whole other topic, of course. But I just thought, wow, that's really telling.
Will you just read that, Barry? Just read that again.
Sure. The Next Generation Science Standards again indicate that in the world of Common Core, college ready means to graduate students who are only prepared for further studies at a non-selective institution or a 2-year community college. Common Core does not prepare students for a 4-year college. NGSS will not prepare students to study in a STEM subject. And again, that's from an education report, the education reporter from the Eagle Forum.
Would you be so kind as to go on the Stop Common Core Iowa open page and put that link on there after the show?
Yes.
That would be terrific. All right. So for our viewers, our listeners, how should we be thinking on that question?
I guess I would encourage people that take the survey to say that they strongly disagree that these NGSS standards will prepare students to be ready for college, career, and other post-secondary options. So,
all right, and let's go to the next question.
Yes, number 5. The Next Generation Science Standards promote rigorous, and they use that word a lot, rigorous levels of learning to help prepare students to be ready for college, careers, and other post-secondary options, which is very similar to question number 4. It does have the same options for answers: strongly agree, neutral, disagree, and strongly disagree.
And repeat the question again.
Yes, this was number 5. The Next Generation Science Standards promote rigorous levels of learning to help prepare students to be ready for college, careers, and other post-secondary options.
And I won't answer for you, but nearest what I have found and the experts that I have been able to talk to through this show and through the Glenn Beck and David Barton project that I was honored to participate in at the Glenn Beck Studios in August in Texas, they are not rigorous standards. They are regimented standards, and it will greatly restrict style. We've talked about this book. I keep it here when we do the show, Common Core, a Trojan Horse for Education Reform, Orley and Corley. And when you tell them that you are a Tamara Scott listener or viewer, they will give you a break on this price when you go to order this. If you'll tell them that Tamara Scott sent you, they will give you a break on the price, and I think you can get it for $15 then. And you can get the book by going to CAUCC.org. CAUCC, I believe that's Californians United Against Common Core.org. And I think you can get it through there, or you can go to CAL for Cal Eagle at sbcglobal.net, sbcglobal.net. And maybe in time I'll get the website up and you can just come to our website and get this information. But in this book, she talks about teachers who were threatened. If they had, this is what we loved about the seasoned teachers. They've got books they've had for years. They've collected teaching instruction tools and different styles. And when you get that student who may have the challenge, they can have something they can give to Johnny or Susie that helps them in their style of learning. She has examples where teachers were told they had to remove anything that was not Common Core out of their classroom. And if they didn't, they faced punishment, possibly removal from their job. So regimented standards, restricted style, but not rigorous by any means. Do you have question 6, Jill?
Yes. Number 6, what are the strengths of the Next Generation Science Standards? And this is a form field that you can type your response. I don't remember if there's a character limit or not. But, wow, I think that would be hard it would be hard for me to go through and read this and try to pull out some strengths. I suppose it is kind of interesting how they have it, broken down. And then they're attempting to, from, kindergarten on up, to have a progression of learning. Sadly, the content isn't stuff that we necessarily want our kids to learn about when you're talking about global warming and things like that. But yeah, I think that would be really hard for the average parent, average citizen to think of a good thing to put in there for question number 6.
Well, we can simply say we haven't heard of too many strengths coming from it. We've heard several weaknesses, but we haven't heard many strengths. How many more questions do we have?
Just one, and that actually is number 7. What are the weaknesses of the next generation science standards? Again, a form field to answer and to type in your response.
And so we can give you help on those. And of course, if you get onto the Facebook pages, we can get you in communication with people who have studied it. Like you say, the Eagle Forum article. We have Shane Vanderhart, who is a great resource right here in Iowa. His website, I believe, is Iowans for Local Control. Iowans for Local Control. We also have Truth in American Education. We have the American Principles Project. We have Eagle Forum, Americans for Prosperity, Concerned Women for America. Several groups are now writing about the dangers, the shortcomings of Common Core and the NGSS standards. They have till Friday to take this survey. They can go to the Department of Education. Leslie's put that on our chat site right here on the show where you can find that. Leslie's asking, and we need to take a break. We need to come right back. But Leslie's asking this question: will task force members have the opportunity or the time to review the survey results prior to making the decision? And the survey process does not seem to it doesn't seem to be very scientific at all, is her note. So Jill, do you know, will you and the other task force members have time to actually go through the results before you're forced to make a decision?
Boy, that's a good question. I don't know. The closing of the acceptance of the survey answers is midnight Friday, and then we have our next task force meeting next Wednesday, which is October 16th. I have not received any indication that we will be able to see that ahead of time, but we might. I don't know what Yvette's going to send out to us. So, yeah, I really don't know.
And give us quickly the time of that next meeting. Public is welcome to attend. You likely will not be able to comment, but your presence there. And some of you are very shy and don't like to get up front of meetings, so this is perfect for you. Just come to the meeting. Is at the Science Center?
Yes, the Science Center of Iowa in Des Moines. And it's next Wednesday, which is October 16th, to begin at 10 a.m.
So, next Wednesday, I will be doing this show. But if you're not part of the show, certainly go to the Science Center. I wish we could do a live broadcast. Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be so cool.
Oh, man.
And at this meeting, what Yvette said when we left the last meeting earlier in September was she was hoping we could come to consensus for a vote this next meeting. However, I wonder if she's coming to realization that probably won't happen, because she has sent out an email, I believe it was last week, for us to pick a date after this October meeting for a 4th meeting. So there's a good chance there will be another meeting either either November or December, where we will convene again.
And if folks don't take the survey, they can still contact the Department of Education and let your voice and your opinion. If it's easier for you to write out a quick email, don't like it, don't want any part of it, you can just do that and send that to the Department of Education. Of course, you can get the link there on the website of the government as well. You can contact us, and we'll get that to you as well. Jill, we got to take a break here. Let's come right back, and we'll talk maybe about some of the content that we just mentioned earlier that's going to be coming out and forced upon our children. I am Tamara Scott. You're listening to Truth for Our Time with Tamara Scott, and stay now for a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back at webcast1live.com.
Yes, now your favorite programs on Webcast One Live can all be watched and listened to on any Android or Apple device, your phone, tablet, or iPad. Yes, your favorite shows on Webcast One Live are available live or on podcast wherever you go. Let me introduce to you some of our great shows.
Shalom. Every week on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman, we'll talk about issues in the Middle East, issues related to the Jewish tradition and religious traditions in general, and keep you up to date on exactly what's going on around the world. You may know some of the story, but you haven't heard all of the story until you've heard it on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman and our special guests we have on every week.
Hi, I'm Doc. You listen to me every Tuesday from 6 to 7 p.m. on Doc and Lefty radio podcast program, where we discuss all the relevant topics of the day, including state, local, and national politics. My partner in crime, Lefty, often likes to have a little bit of conservative justice served upon him. So please turn in for the fireworks every week from 6 to 7 p.m. on Tuesdays at webcast1live.com. Thank you.
So when you want to watch your favorite Webcast One program, remember, there's an app for that. You know, there's an app for that.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
And I am Tamara Scott with Truth for Our Time and giving you information you can use how to live God's Word in today's world when the headlines hit home and what those issues affect you. We're talking about the Common Core, the new generation science standards. Right now we're focusing on a survey through the Department of Education in Iowa due this Friday, and we'd like you to go on and take that. Bob Latimer is the president of COPE, and he's also given us some notes on the survey. He said he reviewed the entire document, the K through 12 progression of standards through particular core idea or topic. There's great weaknesses in this. The amount of content present, I guess right here, let me see if I can find the other note where he's talking about the dangers of it. When you get onto the survey, the one thing you have to remember is that it will not allow you back out. If you get out of the survey without completing it, you will not be able to go back in and finish it. But Bob warns us about many of the issues in there. Bob's concern when I spoke with him a couple days ago was the worldview warp that will take place. If you are a God-fearing person, if you are not an atheist, not an evolutionist, you will not appreciate what your kids are going to be taught. Jill, would you say that's probably fair?
Yes, it seems to really focus on evolution, and I did not see any reference at all to intelligent design or creationism.
Not only will this be taught to our kids, but we're already hearing stories where our kids will, if they are brave enough to either refuse to take one of the tests, and that's the new thing with this, the way they capture information about your home. We've heard the IRS, the NSA, information, the misuse of government agencies are now getting this information through the data mining, which we will talk about. We thought we'd talk about it today, but I wanted to get the survey in since this Friday is the deadline on that, and that date will be is that the 11th?
Correct.
Yeah, the 11th. So, but if your child has the courage to voice dissent, and that's the other thing with this Common Core. They keep talking, the schools keep talking about individuality and thinking outside the box and accepting others. We hear this, we see it in the commercials, and it's the message of today. And yet Common Core really seems to cement only a certain set of standards, and anything out of that leaves room to ostracize and punish these students and teachers. And we're hearing stories, Jill, where students are being forced to watch movies if they disagree as to why they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share a little bit more about that?
Well, just an example was I was speaking with another woman, and she shared with me, she was the coordinator for the Common Core Concerns event that was just held in Sioux Falls this last Saturday, which I attended. And she said that she had talked to a mom out in western South Dakota, can't recall which city it was, but that her child had said, to the teacher, I do not believe in global warming. And the child was not sure if it was during the class or maybe a detention after school kind of situation, but he or she was forced to watch a global warming video as punishment for his statement.
I don't.
You're speechless. I know.
I know. I don't know how that does. And we're not supposed to bring in Hitler or Nazi Germany because that just irritates people. But what does it sound like to you? And oddly enough, I was on the phone with a member of the Department of Education last week. He was defending the books, The Bluest Eye, and what's the other one with the name Cuban in it?
Dreaming Cuban, I believe.
Yes, and the excerpts of those books are so offensive, not just sexually, but the violence, just horrific. And he was defending why these were okay because it was just a selection. It was not necessarily mandatory. You and I both know there will be a teacher who will push the envelope with that covering of having it there. And I don't care if it's voluntary or not. Why would you offer anything like that to our students? What is the benefit of anything like that? But during the phone call, he said, I really hate it when people bring in Hitler-esque or Nazi Germany. You just lose all credibility. And while he was saying that, Albany, New York, puts up a story that students were forced to listen to a speech or write about a speech from the Third Reich and then write a persuasive paper to their fellow citizens as to why Hitler was right.
Yeah, I've heard of things like that.
So, all right. Now I'm looking at notes from Bob Latimer, and he says, here are some of his questions. The topics are too heavy on the practices. Progression of topics is flawed. Key terms are not adequately defined. Fundamental content is missing. Assessment boundaries limit coverage of important content. Standards are poorly written, hard to follow. Standards avoid mathematical relationships and calculations. NGSS asks religious questions, provides only materialistic answers. It employs and does not disclose or explain methodology or naturalism. It does not distinguish between experimental or historical science. It omits evidence inferring to theology, or I'm guessing he's saying technology. Maybe this is above my head. I don't know. Design and nature. So it provides only materialistic explanations of historical origin. So there's a quick run through, and there are more to follow. And I will send this to people if they want to know. If you want to email me, truthforourtime@gmail, I will send you those concerns that Bob Latimer, the president of COPE, has on it. Jill, let's talk very quickly. The worldview warp that comes with it.
Okay. Were you still thinking of evolution, or were you thinking global warming, or all of the
above? Take your pick.
Of course, both of those are very controversial topics. I guess the global warming one, since I just had a situation with my own daughter last Friday, I picked her up from school, and she's 7th grade, and her science teacher showed her, I'm not sure which video yet, I need to have her find it on YouTube for me, but she was very concerned, very worried. She says, Mom, it's so scary what's happening with our planet. So I got some more information. I said, we need to talk about this. You need to show me that video because that is not right. But global warming is very heavy in the NGSS. I just kind of was looking for some, so you could have some concrete examples straight from the standards themselves. This is under Earth and Human Activity, and it says, ask questions to clarify evidence of the factors that have caused the rise in global temperatures over the past century. And then underneath a lot of these standards, there are clarification statements. And in this clarification statement, it says examples of factors include human activities, and it has a long list, natural processes. And then at the bottom it says, emphasis is on the major role that human activities play in causing the rise in global temperatures. That is verbatim.
We have a caller on the line. Once again, how do you even respond to that? We have a caller on the line. Denise, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Tamara. Two things. I mean, as I just heard Jill mention that, there are some really good articles on Heartland Institute's website about global warming. If people have, want some help with that. Have you heard of Heartland Institute, Jill?
Yes, I have. Mm-hmm.
And is this Joy Pullman who writes for Heartland Institute?
Right, but I think there's some different writers that write about the global warming issues, and that is a really great website for that. And then the other thing I wanted to point out to the listeners is that the Fordham Institute did a great evaluation of the NGSS, and that's at www.edexcellence.net. And that is a great evaluation of the whole Next Generation Science Standards
www.edexcellence.net. Thank you, Denise, very much for that.
Thank you.
And so we have just a minute left, Jill. I want to thank you for joining me. Jill is on the task force for Iowa for the NGSS, and I hope you stay on the task force, and I hope you have some influence in stopping this and at least getting us from a C to a higher grade. I can certainly hope. But also, we haven't even gotten to the evolution, Jill.
I know.
And
go ahead.
So we're going to have the evolution issue, the global warming issue, the environment issue. You need to get involved, folks. And Jill, do you have any thoughts in parting on your way out?
On my way out, well, we've kind of hit. When I sent out my email, I had 5 top points, and we've hit 4 of those. I really think with Next Generation Science Standards and Common Core, I really think this boils down to, is any of this stuff even constitutional? Our founders wanted education and all educational decisions, such as standards, to be the job of the states. If you look at the 10th Amendment, it says the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people. And they have just stolen that away from us.
And I would add, it is a responsibility of the parents.
Yes,
your education
absolutely.
is a responsibility of the parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are out of time. We've got to run. I am Tamara Scott. Thank you for joining us on Truth for Our Time. Thank you for joining us on TamarAScott.live. And we'll be back next week at 10 o'clock, and we'll hopefully get to talk about the data mining then. We'll be available at webcast1live.com, or you can go to tamarascottlive.com to get videos and excerpts of the show. And, of course, you can go to the Facebook pages and get more information as well. Be encouraged. Never be complacent. You can change the day.